to share that with you because this morning, my name is Reverend Lori Fleming, and this morning we are going to talk about becoming spiritual pioneers and blazing a new trail. Are you willing to become a spiritual pioneer? Are you willing to get out of your old consciousness and move into something bigger and better and more powerful and wonderful than you've ever been in before? Go like this even if you don't mean it. Okay, there you go. There you go. Well, every day is a new day. You know, I had a friend many years ago who said, every day when I get up, no matter what happened the day before, I wipe the slate clean. This is a brand new day. And each new day is ready for us to create something more wonderful, more valuable than we created in the day before. You guys tired of the status quo? I am. I mean, you know, you have to do the laundry right, and you have to cook some meals, and, you know, you have to do the things you have to do to take care of yourself. Okay, I get that. But you know what? I'm tired of the mundane world. I'm tired of the banal. I'm tired of the everyday. I want to become the kind of spiritual pioneer that each new day is something wonderful, something creative. Somehow I'm able to uplift myself and maybe even a few people around me, even if it means the checkout person at Walmart. You know, because if your consciousness is at a high level, everyone who comes into your energy field will somehow be uplifted. That's why we're here. Practice that. So, becoming spiritual pioneers, we're going to talk about the hero's journey this morning. We're going to look at some new paths to create maybe some exciting new experiences, maybe to bring some new friends into our life. I could use a few new friends. I've only been in the Valley a couple of years, and I still don't know that many people. I'm gradually getting some new friends, but, you know, I'm really ready for something new. But every time we start something new, there's that little bit of scary. You know, we don't quite know what's going to happen. And the unknown's always scary to me. I've always said I could deal with anything as long as I know what it is, right? But the unknown, on the other hand, that's a whole different thing, you know? But don't we like to go places we've never been before? I don't like to go to vacation at the same place I've always been. I like to go to new places. That's what I'm asking you to do today, to go to a whole new place in consciousness where you rise up out of the status quo, rise up out of the mundane, out of the ordinary. Leave the comfortable behind. Breathe. I'm looking to take us from breakdowns to breakthroughs. Can you live in that kind of energy for a little bit? Okay. Well, talking about spiritual pioneers reminded me of 4 or more centuries ago when the first people landed on the east coast of the United States. That was a big journey for them, coming from Europe, and they had to figure out how to make a life here. They had to figure out how to feed themselves. And in those 4 centuries, people have lived across the planet, across the country, little by little by little. Last year, Arizona celebrated their centennial year because we're kind of far west. It took a while for people to get here. And look at what's happened in the space industry in the last 50 years. We've gone to the moon. We've sent a rover to Mars. Did anybody get to see Mars this last week? The red planet, it's the closest that it is to the Earth. I looked, I couldn't see it from where I was. I hope you got to see it. In 10 years, I am predicting that we will land a person on Mars. I think that's so exciting. Talk about spiritual pioneers. But the real journey, the longest journey, is a personal journey. And it's only 18 inches long. And it's going from head to heart as we rise up in consciousness. It's not discovering where we are, i.e. living on the planet that revolves around the sun and has a moon. It's about who we are. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir because you all know that you are divine beings you're a spiritual beings having a human experience, right? That you're not really this body, because eventually one day you're going to leave it behind. And the part of you that's real and the part of you that's true, that's your essence, your soul, that's who you really are. I'm watching as the Gen Xers and the millennials, the young people who are in their, 10 to 20 and 30-year-olds, how they're viewing the world. And their view is to go from a view of materialism, which I admit my generation was all about. I've got a house full of stuff and I can prove it. They're going from an idea of materialism to more spiritual ideas. Some of the millennials right now don't even want to drive cars. I can't imagine not wanting to drive a car. I'm sorry. They're looking to move to cities. I heard this on NPR this week. They're looking to move to cities where there's lots of public transportation. And I think public transportation is a really good idea because I can promise those of you who are younger than I am, in 20 or 30 years, I'm not going to want to give up my car. And the only way I'm going to give it up is if there's public transportation, because I'm still going to want to go places. And you're not going to want me on the road when I'm 90 years old. Trust me. But I think there's a spiritual revolution going on. I think we're all starting to go into our hearts, into our consciousness. That's why I'm calling you spiritual pioneers. That's the last frontier. I'm watching that in our choice of the teachers that we pick today. You know, who do we read? Who do we listen to on PBS? You know, we read the Course of Miracles, and we read and listen to the Abraham things by Jerry and Esther Hicks. You know, we read books by Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson and all these spiritual teachers who are preparing us to be who we really are, to be spiritual pioneers, to be divine beings. And we're changing the context of how we look at everything. In the last few years, everything we've thought, is changing. Medicine is changing. Everything is changing. We are all searching, I think. I think we're searching for something. We can't quite put our finger on it. Something. Have any of you read the book The Alchemist by Paul Coelho? Great book. It's the classic hero's journey. It's a story of a man who wakes up one morning, decides he's going to go look for his fortune, and he has adventures along the way. And like every hero has to return home, which is really, you rise up in consciousness and you bring that higher consciousness with you, and that's the hero's journey. It's a great book if you haven't read it. Well, this morning I'm inviting you to open your spiritual eyes. Discover what we've been searching for all along, that 18 inches from head to heart. As spiritual pioneers, we're going to look at the classic hero's journey. Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell, the great American scholar and author? He found the hero journey in all of the stories that are told in all of the religious traditions, in all of the indigenous groups, Native Americans, Aborigines, whoever the groups are. There's this classic hero story. And it involves living in the ordinary world, right? It's a typical adventure where you go out, you bring back some kind of a boon, a prize or whatever, and then you have to reinsert yourself into the old community. And you can't do it because you're a changed being. In the ordinary world, the hero starts to feel a little bit uneasy. Spirit, maybe you've had this happen to you. Spirit starts nudging you, starts saying, you need to wake up. There's something I want you to do. You start to feel uncomfortable. There's this polarity. You're starting not to fit in your world anymore. It's a classic story of growing up, right? When you reach the age of majority, 18 or whatever, and it's time to go away to college or do whatever it is we need to do next. And we feel pulled in two directions. We don't fit in the community anymore because we're starting to be a different person. And there's this call to adventure. Sometimes we don't answer that call. Sometimes we say, no, not me, I can't do that. I said that in 1986 when Barbara O'Hearn came to the church in Cincinnati where I was a congregant, and she did a board training and it did a meditation, and I clearly heard the call to ministry, and I said, are you kidding me? I don't have anything to say to anybody who want to hear. I've got little children at home. I'm not going to ministerial school. So I worked with the youth group until finally I answered the call. I did everything I had to do, just like Lynette is doing now. I did all the classes, all the preliminary work, and started my journey. At some point, When the hero hears this call, there's a tipping point. You can't not respond. You have to do what Spirit is calling you to do, no matter how scary it is. You have to do it as much as you have to breathe. You have to push through that fear of the unknown. You have to quit making excuses for yourself. Now, I know nobody in here does that. I know nobody whines, why me? We recognize that it's dangerous. It is dangerous because it's different. The unknown is dangerous. So many of us do what I did at that time, and I found a mentor. You know, a mentor could be a shaman, a mentor could be some kind of guru. You know, I did a lot of reading about all the different religious traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, all of that. I just wanted to find some common threads. If I was going to be a minister, that's what God was calling me to do. I needed to figure out why. So we find a teacher, we find someone that gives us the training that we need to go on this hero's journey as spiritual pioneers. Now, if you were going to climb a mountain, you'd find someone to teach you all the skills you need, to use the ropes and all of the things mountain climbers need. But whatever it is you're doing, you find someone to help you along the way. But the best teachers are the ones like described in Dan Millman's book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Have you read that book? I gave that book to all my kids, and it made a profound difference in their life. And if you remember, in the book was this gentleman, old man named Socrates. And every time, I think the book was about Dan's life. Every time Dan got to a place where he just didn't know what to do, Socrates would pop up in a gas station or wherever it was and, give him like 2 sentences, cryptic sentences. And he'd go, what? And then Socrates would be gone. Those are the best kind of teachers, and each of us is a teacher like that for each other. Haven't people said like just one little sentence to you that like resonated and yeah, you got it, and it was that one truth you needed? Well, once we've decided to do the journey, as spiritual pioneers, we get to the point where we're in this liminal state. We're not in the old culture, we're not in the new culture, we haven't started yet, we're like standing in the doorway. And we have to take that first step. We have to commit to the journey. Sometimes something happens to us. There's an accident or an illness or we lose a loved one or whatever that propels us into this new special world. But whatever it is, once we cross that threshold, everything changes. All of a sudden there are new conditions. There might be new rules that we don't understand until we break one of them and get in trouble. There's unfamiliar people. There's everything is new. It's like if you went to college, going away. My grandson just last week finished his last exams in college in Florida. And he's had 5 or 6 students drop out of the engineering program he's in. And they didn't have the study skills. You have to have that preparation because when everything changes, if you're not prepared, it gets really, really difficult. Well, this would be the end of Act 1 in the drama. You've made the choice, you're doing it, something big has happened, and you're ready for the testing. You're ready to be in this new situation. You're ready to just go out and do what it is. And in this special world is metaphysically defined as your consciousness, okay? You're away from the old, and so now you've got to rise up because you only have yourself to rely on. And the people around you that you can collect with you. People who are willing to go on this journey with you, because that's always important. So you make some friends, you make some alliances to help you do this big thing that you're doing. You sort out all these alliances. You find out who the enemy is. The enemy could be not a person, but the enemy could be something that's hard to do. And then you get ready. You say, yes, I'm going to do it. You got your strategy, you got your plan, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, you're ready to go. And then we get to the middle of the story. When you're in this special world, that's when the major challenge happens. The Indiana Jones and the snakes and the Rolling Stones and, all of those things that all those adventure films show us. That's when all the action happens. That's also when you're tested the most. That's when you have to be prayed up. That's when you have to have done all the inner work in order to overcome all those ordeals in life. That's when the hero confronts the fear. Maybe the death. But if there's a death, it's a death of the old consciousness. It's not a physical death. It's a spiritual death. It's a death of the old consciousness. As you rise up into the new consciousness, sometimes the hero has that dark night of the soul. I've been there a few times in my life. I bet some of you have also. Times when you're so far in the dark, so down, there's no one you think that can help you. Those are the best times of all, because those are the times when you can really, really break down and come into the breakthrough that allows you to let go and rise up. To let the Spirit of the living God that was implanted in your soul at the very beginning of time, to work from that, to rise up into higher consciousness. That's where we're tested the most. That's where we go from head to heart. That 18 inches. That's where we finally figure out what body, mind, and spirit really means, how they all work together. The futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard says that we have the perceptive ability to observe not only that which is breaking down around us, but that which is breaking through before us. We can determine that. We can see it. We can know it. Because of the progressive and evolutionary nature of life, there's always something breaking through that which is breaking down. So even though it feels like the dark night of the soul and something's breaking down, that's because there's a bigger, better, greater breakthrough waiting to happen. Sometimes I think we don't celebrate those dark nights of the soul enough. They really are the cleansing process of letting go of the old so the new can come through. A spiritual pioneer keeps his or her attention on the new breakthrough, not on the old breakdown. And then the hero comes to the part of the reward, in this special world that is really our consciousness. The hero takes possession of the treasure. It's called the boon, whatever that is. In all the stories from all of the religions, it's things like the secret to immortal life, or the secret to healing, or something like that. The hero finally comes to the treasure. It was won by facing death, the death of the old consciousness, because the treasure really is a new consciousness. And there's always a celebration. The hero celebrates and feels the joy of having this prize. And then the hero always falls asleep. And that's what happens to us over and over again. Our consciousness rises up, right? And we feel really good, and then we go to sleep again. But we never have to start over. We can always start at the point where we were before. In the hero story, the hero falls asleep, and it's usually a snake. I don't know why the snake is always a bad guy. But the snake comes and takes the treasure away. And the hero has to either go back and get it or go home without it. It's a big choice, So finally the hero either gets the treasure or doesn't get the treasure. It's a better story when the hero gets the treasure. And the hero leaves this special world, this place where there's been the dark night of the soul and where the consciousness has risen up. Leaves that place and starts home. And that's where the resurrection has happened. That's where the polarities that were in conflict before have been resolved. You're feeling pretty good at yourself. At almost the end of the story, there's this great climax where the hero's been tested and found strong enough to do whatever it is that they needed to do. It's where they're purified by that last final sacrifice of allowing the consciousness to die away. It's a great sacrifice to make. And reborn on a higher level of consciousness. But right before the hero gets home, you ever noticed in the action movies, the very last piece? There's always been this action here. There's always a chase scene, where the cars are banging into each other and blowing up and going off the bridge and while the good guys are chasing the bad guys. And That's the final consciousness. It's the old consciousness that we didn't quite deal with. Coming back up and saying, you need to look at me. Here I am. You thought you were so good. When that happens to us, when we've gone out and we've gotten the reward, and then we try to come back into the community and that one last thing happens, just remember it's okay. It's just our higher self telling us there's a little bit more to look at. We're never done. Not in this life, probably, maybe a few more. And that's okay, because consciousness is consciousness. And once you've experienced a heightened level of consciousness, you can never go back to the lower level. It's not that you're going back, it's that you're sleeping again and forgetting to return to that high level of consciousness. You can always go back to it. So the hero comes home and brings the reward, brings the boon. But of course, the hero's changed. The hero can't fit back into the community the same way the hero did when the hero left. And sometimes you can't go home. Sometimes you don't fit anymore. You have to go and find your own community, and that's okay too. It's good to let go of the things where we no longer find ourselves fitting. But every time we go on this hero's journey, every time we leave home and listen to the call of the divine within us, every time we're tested and found good enough, because you are good enough. You are gooder than you know. Every time that's happened to us, every time we're called on the hero's journey, we are spiritual pioneers, and we are rising up in consciousness.